Yep, we're good to go, Chair.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. Welcome back on YouTube. Hopefully the 10 people who were watching it earlier hung around and are now watching it again. I presume Peter needs to tell us the recommendation, yeah?
Yes, I'm ready. Anyway, we agreed, we had some other, some other talks and say, we had very little to choose on. Instead, we thought if it was gone up a little bit, we were going to say thank you. But we are thanking the team that has organized that to give us 1.7%. We all agreed on that one, but for the future, we would want something like about options, 1 or 2, 3 options, so that we could choose in between. But for now, we have agreed all that we agree on 1.7%. We want to thank those who have come up with the answer and figures. Thank you.
Okay, so 1.7, Mark.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Just like to say thanks very much to all the tenants, and what I'll look to do is feed that back to the shadow executive meeting on the 10th of February.
Right, thank you.
Okay, and my thanks to everybody as well.
Thank you.
I'll pass those on as well, Chair. If it's okay, I have another meeting that I now need to get to.
Yeah, off you go.
So thanks very much, everybody.
Right, cheers. See ya.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is the Future Northants update. John?
Hey, Chair. Just provide an update of what's been going on in the last few weeks since we've had our meeting. So the first thing to say is that 10 weeks tomorrow, the new council will open for business and Kettering Borough Council will be no more. So in preparation for that, the Chief Executive and the corporate leadership team have now been appointed and have taken up their posts. And at the moment, they're recruiting to the third tier posts, which comprise mainly assistant directors, including one for housing and communities. Once those assistant directors have been recruited, there's no more recruitment anticipated until the new council opens for business. So in the meantime, what we're concentrating on is making sure that when it does open for business, it's operating in a safe and legal manner. So we've set up a group in North Northamptonshire called the North Northamptonshire Housing Group, which comprises all 4 existing authorities. And we've put together a work programme to prioritise those things we have to get in place before the end of March, beginning of April. And the work of that group falls into 4 different areas. There's housing strategy, housing options, private sector housing and council housing. So look at those in turn. Housing strategy, we have people across the existing councils working on drafting what we're calling a housing strategy light. So it's not a full strategy, but what we're looking at is what's the existing housing market like across the entirety of North Northamptonshire. So you'll remember that we do, especially elected members, we do an annual seminar on, or an annual workshop on Kettering's local housing market. And we've got a pretty good feel for what goes on in Kettering, but we wanted to reach the same level of detail across the whole of North Northamptonshire. So working with our colleagues on establishing what are the key issues. So we're looking at things like affordability, stock condition, security of tenure, demand from the population, how that's changing over time, and looking at the supply of accommodation, both from council, from housing associations, and also from the private sector. So we're hoping that we have some work, the picture, if you like, of the local housing market completed by the end of March, which we can then share with elected members, and then we'll be looking at what the housing strategy itself might look like for the new authority after vesting day on the 1st of April. Moving on to housing options, there's been quite a lot of progress here. Housing options teams, as you know, mainly administer a statutory process around homelessness. So that means in very broad terms, the procedures tend to be quite similar. And so over recent years, those housing option teams have been working together quite regularly to harmonise processes. So an example of that would be, we did a lot of joint work prior to the introduction of the Homelessness Reduction Act to make sure that we record information the same way that we work with other agencies. So we've been able there to build on some existing work. So at the 3rd of February, we're putting together a draft housing allocation scheme, which will go to the Shadow Executive Committee of the new council for approval. We're also working on harmonising day-to-day processes for how we operate as a housing authority in dealing with people who are homeless and making sure we have a consistent approach. So if you're homeless and you approach Kettering or you approach Rushden or Wellingborough, you would have a consistent approach there. And we're confident that all the policies and procedures in that area will be in place for the 1st of April, and the policies will have been to a late March meeting of the Shadow Executive for approval. I think keeping an eye on it, it looks like the operation that we have in Kettering is will be very similar to that operating by the new council, which I'm pleased about. In private sector housing, a similar thing. The private sector housing teams have been working together quite closely over a number of years. And so we've got on the 3rd of February, a draft private sector housing policy going to the Shadow Executive for approval. And at the meeting at the end of March, we'll have an enforcement policy going to them for approval. So turning now to council housing, we've been doing quite a lot of work jointly with our colleagues in Corby, because in Northern Northamptonshire, the only council housing is in Kettering and in Corby. And I'm going to ask Dan and Leonie just to say a little bit about what's happening in terms of property services and in terms of tenancy services. So, Chair, if it's okay, I'll hand over to Dan first.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, thank you. Yes, we've got a few different projects underway with Corby. One of those projects is aligning some of our key procedures for things, for example, like the annual gas servicing, to make sure we've got the same approach to how we gain access to a property in Corby or in Kettering. So we have projects there and similar projects around some of the other procedural cyclical safety projects that we have to undertake each year. In addition to that, we've also been looking at our out-of-hours service and just making sure that we can both continue to offer an out-of-hours service that works from day one. So that's a project that at the moment won't result in any changes to how we operate. A Kettering operative will still attend to an out-of-hours issue in the Kettering area. It could be that in the future, obviously that will change, but at the moment, we are continuing with the approach that we have now. We also have another project underway whereby we've been looking at our capital programmes next year to see if there's any economies of scale that we can gain from procuring any contractors jointly. One of the things we have found is a lot of the things that we use contractors for, Corby actually do in-house and vice versa. So again, unlikely this year to be a lot of change in terms of how we deliver it, but I'm hopeful that obviously as the new authority has a bit more time to look at these things, then there could be some changes there that will bring about greater economies. And then the final piece of work that I've been working on is looking at our current operatives productivity and development scheme. So that scheme is whereby operatives get recognised for being able to do additional functions outside of their core trade. So we have a number of our operatives that are actually classed as what are called multi-skilled tradesmen. So they have a core trade, but also are able to do others. And that scheme hadn't been reviewed since 2009. So we've done an extensive review, and we've been through the unions and the consultative forum, And next week I'll be presenting to the final forum, the Employment Committee, whereby if agreed, it will mean that we'll have a clear structure whereby all operatives that are still classed as single trade will have the opportunity, if they wish, to be regraded as multi-skilled. Now, the benefit to us as a landlord and as an employer of doing that is we expect to do more jobs via one operative, and therefore, we can get in and out of a property a lot quicker and complete the repairs. Because, for example, an operative who needs to replace, say, the cupboard around a sink unit would also be able to do the basic plumbing that's also required, as opposed to having to send 2 trades. So that's the logic behind that, and it will mean that we've got a more sort of adaptive workforce that we believe will help, again, the new authority going forward. Okay, I think, Leona, that's everything I've got.
Thanks, Dan. Just to summarise really some of the projects that the tenancy team have been working on. The first project has been converting our KBC fixed term tenancies to secure. You'll probably recall that last year I brought to the forum the new tenancy policy, and the significant change is that we would only be offering fixed term tenancies in exceptional circumstances.
Can't hear you very well, Leona.
Oh, sorry, is that the same for everybody? I usually speak loud enough to be heard, Councillor, don't I? Is that okay now for everybody? Okay. Recall me coming to the Tenants Forum with the new tenancy policy, so that fixed term tenants
Sounds good to me.
were only offered in exceptional circumstances. So are you still having trouble hearing me?
We can hear you now, yes.
It's better now.
Okay. So one of the things that we needed to do in order to regularise our tenancies was to work to convert our fixed term tenancies to secure. Now, we had over 600 to convert, and we've actually contacted about 400 of those tenants so far, and we're currently chasing up responses to those contacts. The idea is that we will convert as many as possible, just so that our tenants are on an equal footing with the former Corby tenants when we convert. So that's the first project I've been working on. Now, with colleagues in Corby, we've been working on a new combined tenancy agreement for the new unitary authority. So we have a draft tenancy agreement that's been prepared, and we've consulted with key members of staff. And the next stage is to consult with you guys as Tenants Forum and our tenants. The aim is that we will seek approval from our shadow executive in March in order to have a new tenancy agreement that we're able to use for new tenants from the 1st of April. And after the 1st of April, we will then be varying the conditions of tenancy for all tenants after that date. Okay. The significant thing is that there isn't a huge change in terms of the terms and conditions for Kettering Borough tenants. So that there's no significant changes to your terms of tenancy, but it's about regularising and ensuring that all tenants have the same tenancy agreement moving forward. Related to that is the tenancy policy. Now, we reviewed our tenancy policy quite comprehensively last year and implemented a new tenancy policy, but we obviously need a new policy for Northamptonshire. We have a draft tenancy policy, and the main differences will be for Corby Borough Council prospective tenants, because at the moment, what we want to do is we want to maintain the offer of fixed term tenancies in exceptional circumstances, and in exceptional circumstances only, which is new for Corby area tenants. And also there are some slight differences on succession rights, but not any amends for our tenants. The final area is a review of the aids and adaptations policy. So we have one comprehensive policy through the whole of Northamptonshire. As I say, that's in draft form at the moment. The policies that we had for Kettering and Corby were not very far apart from each other. So this was a unification that was quite quick and easy to do. And it was mainly about amending the policy to reflect new advances in technology, relating to aging adaptations, and also new trends in occupational therapy recommendations as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes the presentation. We're happy to take any questions that representatives may have.
Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that very good presentation again. I'm just thinking about tenant participation and consultation. What's, if anything, will change with that? Any updates?
I think it's clear to say that this is an area that we would have hoped to have made more progress. Certainly when we were talking about this at the beginning of the process, we were talking about having joint meetings of Corby and Kettering tenants, with the view to forming a single consultative forum in the new council. Now, of course, COVID has put paid to that. And one of the reasons we understand that tenants in Corby aren't as IT enabled as you guys are. So, for example, they're consulting on the rent increase via letter rather than through a meeting. So that's frustrated our efforts to some extent to get something in place. But it's something that come vesting day, we want to prioritise and make sure that we bring both sets of tenants together in a unified consultation process. And that's certainly our goal. I think one thing that gives us a little bit of time, because we're having two neighbourhood housing revenue accounts, for the first year, things might be run to some extent as two separate operations. So in some areas we're quite similar in how we operate, in other areas are very different. You heard Dan say that the stuff that we contract externally, Corby do in-house, and it's almost a mirror image the other way, and you don't change that stuff overnight. So it may be for a while anyway, we continue with a tenants forum here and a consultative committee at Corby, but as soon as we're able to, it'd be great to actually have a new structure that unifies tenants so that everyone's got oversight of what's going on across North Northamptonshire.
Yeah.
Any other questions for John, Dan or Leon on the Future Northants? Gloria. You're on mute, Gloria.
Right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right, with this new thing, as you know, I'm a member with Tracy's panel, the environmental panel. Are we still going to be able to do that?
I would hope that we're able to, what we're doing now is continue doing it, but also actually expand the way that tenants are involved. So using the new council as a way to review our tenant consultation processes completely, and make sure you've got more input into the decisions about your homes and neighbourhoods. So that would be our intention. I'm sure it's the intention of our colleagues at Corby as well. I don't know if Leona, you want to come in on the specific example of the environmental panel.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The environmental improvement panel will certainly continue next year, Gloria, and it's something that we as a neighbourhood management team and as a senior management team and the housing team really support, because it is about responding to the needs of the local communities, and it is very much directed by our tenant representatives. So it's something that we absolutely support.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Peter.
Yeah, it goes the same with the other side of TOPS. Will it be included within the same thing, environment and also the TOPS?
Yeah, I think wherever we can, we'll carry on doing what we're doing now. That's certainly the plan I'm hoping for. One thing I had found out the other day was that Wellingborough or East Northants actually have a handful of council houses, but they're all managed out of Corby. So that's worth bearing in mind.
Yeah, Chair, I think they're actually used as temporary accommodation for homeless households, so that they don't operate a housing revenue account in the sense that we do or Corby do.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like the acquired properties we have, where we buy properties up in the private sector and they're not part of our housing stock, but we use them as temporary housing as an alternative to things like B&B. And that's exactly what's happening at Wellingborough and Corby. And in fact, Wellingborough were acquiring a property recently, and one of our surveyors did the survey on it and drew up a condition survey. So we work fairly closely with them as well on that.
All right. Okay. That's excellent. Okay. If there's no more questions on Future Northants, let's go on to the capital programme update.
Councillor Dutton, Chair, Councillor Dutton.
Oh, sorry, Andrew.
Sorry, Chair. I just wanted some clarification. Did Peter mention the tenant overview and security panel just now? Because his line wasn't very clear. Was that the other group that was going to continue alongside
Tenant, through you, Chair,
Yeah.
tenants recruiting, scrutiny and
Yeah,
that's
fine.
Yeah.
I've got it now. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Okay, Dan, capital programme.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, you should have all have had the report. I think, unfortunately, what I've got to report to start with is that COVID has once again hit the capital programme. I'll just wait for David to get it up on the screen. You can go to the second slide, David, please. Okay, so this slide gives you the sort of running commentary of where we are with the capital programme. What you'll see there is boilers. We are bang on track with where we want to be for this year, like we said. Unfortunately, kitchens and bathrooms was due to start this month, and the COVID lockdown has put paid to that. Now, obviously, none of us know when the current lockdown is going to end, but what we can say is that programme isn't going to be able to start until the lockdown has ended, and therefore I think it's unlikely that programme will start this financial year, which means that programme will have to roll over into the next financial year. Door entry systems progressing well, that's on track. Roofing, again, has had a good start. We've got a couple of hold-ups. Number one, the recent weather, and number two, a bit of a shortage of tiles. So we are waiting on the contractor issuing a revised programme for the remaining properties. And I understand that of this year's roofing programme, 40 properties have actually completed to date. And there's approximately 10 more properties to do on the Pikeshire Road estate. And then we have made a start in Burton Latimer. We've done 4 properties there, and there's approximately another 23 to do. So again, depending on the weather, I think is going to depend on that one. The doors and EWI are on site in the Naseby Road area. So I don't know if anybody has been down there to see what the progress is like there. Again, it's only likely to be weather that will hold those programmes up. Homes to the Future, we are likely to be somewhere around about halfway through this project by the end of the year. The final 2 properties in Desborough are well underway at the moment, and we've started in Rothwell, ripping out the 2 void properties that we have there. So I'm hopeful that the first tenants in Desborough will be decanted next month, and therefore we'll be able to get into their homes and get those properties renovated. On that one, Sparkle and Hidden Homes, because they are both in our sheltered properties. Again, COVID-19 lockdown is stopping those. They were again both due to start this month, and neither of those projects will be starting whilst we still have COVID in our midst. And then the other projects, they are underway. Aids and adapts, we have been able to do a number of aids and adapts between the 2 lockdowns. Again, that would be led by the tenants and whether they're happy for the work still to go ahead or not. Can I have the next slide, please, David? So this slide gives the indication of where those works are. So I think everybody's aware because these haven't changed. If you go to the next slide, you've got the finance update, as was the end of November. So hopefully the figures there reflecting the commentary I've already given. And then if you go to the next slide, David, please. We've got a focus on Hampden Crescent, which is obviously now complete. Both blocks are tenanted. So I don't know if everybody's aware of the project that went on there, but obviously we've converted 2 blocks of flats from 3-bedroom flats into a mixture of 36 1- and 2-bedroom flats. We've obviously got things like the district heating system that's powered by air source heat pumps. We've got EWI wrapped around those buildings. We've got photovoltaic panels as well to try and make them as energy efficient as possible. And that's reflected in the increased EPC average rating from an F to a B. So a big jump there, both reducing costs to tenants and the carbon footprint of those schemes. And obviously we are effectively the provider of that heating for the tenants. So we're able to set the rates that the tenants are charged for that hot water that they use from taps and also for the heating system there. And then the final slide just gives you an indication of some of the other stats that we've got with regards to our current position with things like the annual gas safety certificates. I can confirm at the moment we are actually at 100% again for gas safety. So again, considering the challenges we've had this year with lockdown, I really am pleased with how well the team have managed to still deliver an excellent level of safety service there to tenants. And also thankful to the tenants that have continued to let us in the main, because whilst COVID is obviously with us, we still have other safety concerns that we need to make sure that we attend to as well. So I think that's all I was going to say tonight, Chair. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
Martin?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dan. A very good presentation again. On the capital programme, the percentage completed, is that the percentage completed for this year, or is, like it says, so for instance, the door entry systems, you're at 50%. Is that another 50% and then it's all completed, or is that just for this time? And it's good to see that on there, actually, the percentage completed. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, that is the percentage of this year's budget and the target that we're aiming for. So I don't know exactly, but I think we're pretty close to finishing that door entry system. I'd need to double check, but I know this isn't obviously the first year we've been doing the door entries. So it's likely to be that we are very close to finishing it by the end of this financial year.
Chair, can I just come back?
Yep.
Yeah. Would it be possible then, at some point then, Dan, to have some figures of what's left to do on some of these things? Would that be possible?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think it would be on some things. Obviously, others, it's a bit of a never-ending programme, isn't it? But yeah, I think on something like door entries, we could certainly give you that and say of the blocks that we have, how many of those blocks will now have the new system installed in them. So yeah, I'm sure we can get you on some of those. So if you leave that.
And also the doors, the normal doors, surely you must know how many you've done and how many still to do.
Yeah, again, with the doors, I guess it's a little bit more tricky on the normal doors because a door that was maybe replaced 10, 15, 20 years ago may then need replacing again, due to the use it's had. So it's a little bit more tricky, and I can see whether we can get some data on that, but I can't say for definite on that one. It's a bit easier on the blocks because we know there's a finite number, whereas the amount of doors that are out there and whether the records go back far enough could be a bit more tricky.
I think on that, Dan, it would be, like some of the tenants have still got the very old wooden doors. They've not got the new doors. I mean, that's what I was thinking of, you know, how many of them are still got to be replaced?
Yeah, okay, I can see what I can find out on that one, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you, Dan.
Simon.
Sorry, guys. Hello, Dan. Yeah, I was just wondering, with coronavirus stopping pretty much everything going on, with the situation, people with disabilities getting things done like walk-in bathrooms, etc. Has that been stopped completely, or are you still trying to do those sort of things?
We certainly have managed to do a number of those between the sort of two main lockdowns that we've had. I don't know the exact position with regards to adaptations going on during this latest lockdown, but I know from the information with regards to spend that there's certainly been jobs that have been completed this year. I'd need to go and just double check with the team, but again, a lot of that could be tenant driven as to whether they feel comfortable with people working or not.
Okay, it'd just be interesting to know if you're still going ahead with adaptations during the lockdown period. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, well, one of the other things we're doing is we've actually got a couple of void properties that are having extensive adaptations to them. And one of those is due on site any day, and the other one's just gone out on contract, having got planning permission just before Christmas. So we have a couple of large adaptation projects that will be starting because of the fact they're in voids, and that will enable, I think it's 2 tenanted properties to move into those more suitable homes once those works have been completed. So that was one of the other things that we did to try and again negotiate around the restrictions that COVID put in place by doing some of these bigger projects that we've liked to have done previously.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Any other questions for Dan? No. Okay, thanks for that, Dan. On to the feedback. The Connect, Leona.
Thank you, Chair. We have a editorial panel tomorrow afternoon. So we're in the stages, very early stages of, and I will say this, our final edition of Connect as Kettering Borough Council. So it's quite a significant edition. So one of the ideas that I've had and one of the proposals that I will put to the editorial panel is it would be really nice if we could have a celebratory issue. And I think it fits, Martin, really well with your comments earlier about it would be fantastic to have some good news stories, some positive experiences of what council housing in Kettering has done for you. It would be great if members of the Tenants Forum were able to do some little pen pictures about how their input in the Tenants Forum has impacted on their local communities. If you've got any ideas, any stories, anything that you would like to say, any pictures, then please contact me or Tracy, and we will, really happily try and get as many of those positive news stories in this edition of Connect as possible. Conversely, we will also be looking forward as well. So we will be wanting to really positively, welcome people to Northamptonshire and the new housing team that ultimately will be managing your service. Okay. And that's it from me. Thank you, Chair.
Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea, Leona. Fantastic to look back and see how things have changed and the positive news stories and how it's changed for tenants and maybe in this room and volunteers. I know myself, since I've started, as you well know, I've changed a lot just by doing this volunteering. So I think it's a fantastic thing to celebrate that and to celebrate the tenants and their achievements and communities. So yeah, brilliant, good idea.
Andrew.
Just on Connect, I think there's a picture in the museum of the first council tenant receiving their keys back in the day. I wondered if that could be included in Connect, and I wondered if that was still a council property and what had happened to that house through the years. But that's a big research thing. But I just think something going back over the history of council tenants in this borough would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, if I can add, we were hoping this year to have an exhibition within the museum that was celebrating 100 years of council housing in Kettering, but unfortunately, obviously, COVID has put paid to that. So we were in sort of preparation for doing that exhibition. So we do have an amount of information. So it would be really nice to have a bit of history, but a bit of, you know, our current tenants as well. So thank you.
Yeah, that would be good. Any other questions on the Connect? Maggie?
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Andrew's point about 100 years of council housing, although we didn't get the exhibition in the museum, which we much hoped for, we did get the stone in the timeline. So that needs to be included somewhere within the story.
Yeah, okay. Anything else on the Connect? No. Can I also thank Tracy for the electronic messages you've been sending out? They've been really useful and helpful. So I just wanted to say thank you before I forget again.
Can I second that, Chair?
Yeah. Okay. Tenants overview and scrutiny panel. Is that Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, continuously to monitor all their services as normal. We've not had a meeting this year yet, but we will do soon. And continue to monitor things, and we'll let you know as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other business? Maggie, and then Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Gloria mentioned earlier on about whether the overview, the environment panel would still be working, and it was confirmed that it would, which is excellent news. So as a follow-on from that, can we get a report to the next meeting, please, of where the money has gone this year and what you've done? I always find that entertaining and interesting, so it would be good to know who managed to get their money and who didn't.
I'm getting nods from John and Leona, so that can go on the agenda. Anything else? Oh, sorry, Martin, completely forgot.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, really. With the white paper that came out recently and what it entails, there's a lot to it. I wondered whether we could have, John, maybe a session sometime of what that means for Kettering. Because there's quite a lot in it to do with, obviously, I'm quite proud of See the Person being mentioned in the white paper to tackle the stigma. But I just wondered what Kettering Borough Council and moving to the unitary, what their thoughts on the white paper. So could we have a session to go through that at some point? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to bring something to the next Tenants Forum.
Okay, excellent. Andrew?
Yeah, have we got a date for the next meeting, please?
Chair, I think it's 10th of March, which would actually be the last Tenants Forum for Kettering Borough Council.
Yeah, okay. Peter?
Yes, thank you. I would like to thank the team, everybody, to be with me and elect me to be part of the system. I want to thank you all for all that you have for me. Thank you.
No problem. I think we congratulated you last meeting, but you weren't there, and I forgot about it this meeting.
I was not there. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other business, David, have you got the draw? Yay! Off you go then. Evelyn.
Yay. Evelyn.
Yay. Congratulations.
Happy shopping.
Okay. With that
Thank you.
I'll call this meeting to a draw and look forward to seeing you on the 10th of March. Thank you, everybody.